Everyone knows the last 6 months of the real estate market have been absolutely wild. Buyers and sellers have been hanging on to the back end of a runaway train, and honestly, people are tired. And I get it. When the macroeconomics change every week, day, month, and the ground is constantly shifting beneath you, it's hard to feel like you're making a good decision. But here's the thing. To characterize the Houston real estate market as bad is to miss the big picture altogether. Houston posted over 100,000 sales in 23, 24, and 25, which is functionally the same volume that we saw in 2019, long before COVID ever blew through our market. Yes, deal structures do look different than they used to, but overall, the Houston real estate market is extremely productive. The thing is, none of these things move you forward, and in fact, most of the thoughts driving these statements are total myths. So today, I'm going to help walk you through why these are myths and how you can have the confidence to move forward. Hi, I'm Carolyn Bauerschlag, a local real estate agent helping people just like you relocate from all over the country right to our great city. And if you're considering making a move to West Houston, make sure to reach out with the contact information listed below. I would love to add you to our client family. The first and most common myth I hear is things will be better next year. But here's the thing with that. This one's kind of dangerous. If you look at the total market activity that happened in 2025 and compare it to what happened in 2024 here in Houston, Texas, prices actually went up by 1%. Now, 1% by itself doesn't sound like a whole terrible ton, but when you look at the 5-year sales history in Houston, Texas, prices actually went up on average for $50,000 for a typical home. That's 13% over a given 5-year period. If you took a dart and threw it at any house in the greater Houston area, the reality is that if you bought, you would be 15 or 13% better off than when you started 5 years ago. Now, what I'm expecting for 2026 is for us to see more of the same. So far, year to date here in Houston, we have seen statistically flat or slightly positive price growth in the greater Houston market. So what that tells me is that barring some other crazy activity happening on the back half of 2026, we will have a year that's a lot the same as 2025. Now, 2025 didn't feel particularly good. Getting a deal to be done was difficult. But again, to characterize Houston as an unproductive market is to miss the point entirely. 100,000 people chose to transact in our area, and that is causing prices to grow over time. Now, nationally, a new piece of information just came out this last week. What we heard from our chief economist for Compass Real Estate, who tracks everything that's happening in the nation weekly, is that the number of homes coming on the market available for sale actually started to decrease relative to the same time last year. Now, why is this important? It's important because for most of 22, 23, 24, and 25, we've seen huge amounts of inventory coming online every single week. So what this means for us is that if the trajectory keeps and we start to see a decrease in the rate that homes are coming online, what that means is that supply or the available inventory is going to be bought up, which for you means that the buyer will have less choice. And as you have less choice and more people enter the market, prices go up. So my strong recommendation to you as an agent is to resist the urge to say, I'm just going to wait another year because I believe it's going to be better. We have the data to show that even in COVID booms and COVID busts and difficult macroeconomic circumstances, home prices in Houston tend to go up. The second most common myth that I hear from buyers in a real estate discussion is that they believe that they are in a buyer's market. Now, this isn't entirely their fault, and sometimes they're right, but the national media would have you believe that our real estate market is imploding. We've seen Houston have headlines that say things like, Houston has the most inventory of any city in the nation. That's true, and yes, that would lead you to believe that we are in a buyer's market, but it's far more complicated than that. If you take the approach that any house that you want is simply going to be given to you at a discount, you are absolutely going to miss out, and here's why. The average consumer right now is extraordinarily price sensitive, but people with money are willing to spend it on the right thing. And the right thing tends to be not only the structural mechanical components of a house have to be wonderful, but they also want the visuals or at least the cosmetic appearance of the home to be lovely and enticing as well. So what that means is people are very willing to spend their money and spend it well when the right and most attractive thing comes on the market. Now, most of my buyers have good taste. And other people in this marketplace have good taste too. So inevitably, when they encounter a house that they want to write an offer on, someone else is interested as well. So what that means is, so far, year to date in 2026, almost every single buyer experience that I've had has been a multiple offer situation. And that's in direct conflict with the message that perhaps Houston is a buyer's market. Now, that's not to say that right here in the West Houston corridor, we don't see beautiful homes and wonderful neighborhoods get stuck and sit and arguably be subject to a really incredible deal. What I'm trying to express is that there is usually an underlying factor for why a home is sitting on the market, right? So if what you want is a neighborhood that has great schools and low tax rates, so does everybody else. If what you're okay with is a neighborhood that has higher tax rates right now and great schools, well, maybe not everyone is looking at being okay with a 3% tax rate on an ongoing basis. So in that neighborhood, maybe you have a better opportunity to get a better deal. Now, maybe you're looking in an area that itself has no more new construction, but new construction is adjacent to it, right? That resale neighborhood might have really excellent deals because the sellers can't offer the same incentives that new construction can with interest rates or closing costs or whatever the case may be. So yes, there are isolated circumstances where people will get a deal on a home, but it would be inaccurate to characterize this market as one where you can walk into any house and say, I'm going to give myself a discount. So as your friendly neighborhood realtor, what I do with every client is get a very clear understanding on what is driving the buyer's interest in actually purchasing a home. And eventually we get all of those little features and individual decision points worked out. And I then go with you to match that to the individual neighborhoods where I think you are going to have the most success. Now, this is nuanced and it's complicated, but this is what I enjoy doing the most. So if you want to talk through those specific details, make sure to reach out so that we can have a proper consultation. Now, the third most common statement or myth that I hear is, I'm just going to wait so that I don't have to compete. And this is a thought that's not just unique to 2026. I would say this is a thought that I hear from every buyer at least a few times a year. And yes, it's been more prevalent as our market's gotten a little bit more difficult. But since I've had the pleasure of selling, this is something that I've heard over and over again. I heard it back in 2014 when oil busted. I heard it after Harvey when everyone thought that the market was going to collapse. I heard it in 2019 when arguably everything was great. I heard it during COVID, on the run up and on the rundown. And ultimately, what I would be willing to tell you is that if you like a home, someone else probably likes it too. Now, another way to not compete, of course, is to target homes specifically that have been sitting on the market. Now, what constitutes sitting on the market? As I just mentioned a moment ago, there are plenty of homes that are selling in multiple offers. What we see typically is something that quote unquote sits in the West Houston corridor would be anything that's on the market past about 2 weeks. And that may sound foreign to your ear, but homes that are well-priced, well-positioned, and super attractive sell like that. So if your strategy is to say, I don't want to compete, I would say, well, let's go look for something that we know is in a great neighborhood, that we know has a great tax rate, but it's probably just a little bit overpriced. Or maybe it has a roof that needs to be replaced. Or maybe it's the roof and the HVAC. Or maybe it needs paint and carpet, right? These are all things that are very fixable, but are perhaps objectionable to people who don't have the funds or the interest in making those changes. But ultimately, what I'm trying to convey to you is that regardless of market condition, there are always people in Houston, Texas that have the money and the ability and the interest to spend on a house that they believe is well-priced, well-positioned, of quality construction, in a great neighborhood with great schools. Now, I'm not here to force a sale down your throat. Ultimately, you need to do what's right for your family. But if any of your objections that I've just outlined here today sound familiar to you, my honest hope is that you'll consider what we've just discussed here and realize that Houston is honestly a very healthy market, and that whatever you buy, and when you buy with a strategy, with yours truly, you will have the benefit of enjoying some long-term appreciation. If you're considering a move to the West Houston area, make sure to check the description below. My phone number and email are listed, and I want to be able to connect with you. And if you found value in this video here today, make sure to click the link below and subscribe, because we put content like this out every single week. See you soon.